Chair Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Jay Williams.
Here.
Commissioner Davidson.
Present.
Commissioner Miles. Commissioner Ratliff. Commissioner Wagner.
Here.
Commissioner Barcheck.
Here.
And Council Liaison Starnes.
Here.
Thank you.
So we have enough for a quorum. We'll go ahead and proceed with citizens' communications. Do we have any citizens' communications?
No, sir.
All right, we'll go to receive a presentation from Chair Williams on the city council meeting. Chair Williams was not at that meeting. He had rehab that day and had a very stiff neck. So I'm gonna take it from Shannon or Barbara.
Okay. So we did the first reading of an ordinance creating a historic landmark preservation program for the city. We did a second reading amending the all-weather surface definition to add grass pavers. Did a second reading of the ordinance amending the landscape and screening requirements to add Texas A&M's website where you can go and get all of the various shrubs and trees.
And for the ones that weren't here, when we sent it to city council, we had a list of trees. The way they're doing it is a simple link to that page.
Right.
So that saves a lot of,
Well, and the list that we had included things like chinaberry trees, which are now known as nuisance trees, meaning they spread without providing benefit to your local fauna and flora. So if you just link it to an educational site, then you're always going to be good and up to date. And then they did the second reading on prohibiting vehicles from parking on unimproved surfaces. Mr. Blanchard had done a survey around town and found that about half of our residents park on the grass. So we're gonna do a 12-month education process for this. And I've already gotten some calls from people that say, what happens if I can't afford to do it? And I'm like, then we have to talk about that. So, you know.
is that
Is
something?
that for parking for any vehicle, trailer, car?
Well, really for the trailers, it's not so much parking as storage. It's the late Charles Miles.
I was here in one, left and came back.
Thank you for the space.
Oh, good, sweet, nice deal, nice deal. That's what I'm talking about.
So that's more of a storage issue rather than a parking issue, but it would be anything that's parked, which is typically moving it in and moving it off.
Question. Was that negligence on our part? That we didn't put
Probably.
enough teeth in
No.
when we said that? Or
No.
by omission, we didn't?
No, it's just the amount of work that it's gonna take one code enforcement person to do, and that's only one segment of his job. He does building permits and planning issues, and so we're hoping that we can get it done, but that by this time next year that we may have funding for a second officer. And then we did a solid waste grant application that we were successful on, where we're gonna be getting 30 55-gallon drums and wrapping it with that I Heart Rockdale, the pink thing that Rita Quinn came up with, and putting them in the downtown for recycling. And we got the grant for that. And then St. Joseph's Catholic Church requested to abandon the alley that is surrounded by the church property in San Gabriel, and the council approved that. And then the sesquicentennial is coming up next July. If anybody wants to be involved in the planning of that, we'll be doing it immediately after this.
Yeah,
But the
point of
council-
order, we need to finish at 3 o'clock for
Yeah,
that meeting to
we do.
begin.
They gave 20,000 in seed money because the kickoff is gonna be a drone show, which should be really, really unique. You don't see those yet. And then the Rockdale Tiger Athletic Booster Club had their fees waived. And that's really all that would be the news fit to print for that.
Questions? Thank you. Action items. A, review and approve the minutes from the meeting on August 1st.
motion that we approve the August 1st minutes.
I'll second.
Made and seconded that we approve the minutes as presented. All those in favor, your right hand, please. Motion made, seconded, and carries. Received a monthly code enforcement report. Which would be page 3.
Okay, so this is our August report, and so we're about to end on the fiscal year, so your next report will be what you requested, the compiled report for our fiscal year. So where we are at right now is a breakdown. We've had 31 trash violations, 106 high grass, and then 74 other miscellaneous violations, with 10 that have been voided because we don't have anybody to hold accountable at the moment. When you break that down, 158 of those have been completed so far, 7 are in court currently, and then 33 have not met the 20 days that we give them before it goes to court. With that, I'll take any questions.
Is there something that we've done that doesn't have teeth in it? Or is everything proceeding the way you would like it to go?
It's running smoothly, and actually, I think it's a good sign that the trash has gone down so much. It's not a problem that's been solved, but if you would have looked at the numbers last year, it would have been significantly higher than it is at this point.
What about our tree limbs hanging over the 14-foot corridor
That-
everywhere? I noticed catty corner from the tennis courts at Brazos and Murray, was that they finally trimmed them, but then they left them laying in the ground. Was that something we did, or is that something they did without even being told?
We reached out to them, and so it would be
'Cause it
two
was-
different
It was
violations.
causing the traffic.
Yeah.
I mean, it was blind and you looking back to the east.
And you'll see that, that's actually one of the ordinance amendments we have for you guys today, is we were having trouble citing them for that specific violation, so you'll see, we'll discuss it later, but most of
Okay.
these miscellaneous cases are property maintenance related and the
Well,
tree
that
limbs.
same tree that had a truck come through over the weekend and had to drive underneath it and broke limbs off in the road. So they only trimmed what you asked to trim.
Who would I approach to present a wrap-up on our trash collection day? You, Gerald, Barbara?
Probably be Gerald or Teresa, I would say, would be your best bet.
Is that the
To
dumpster day thing?
present a wrap-up?
Let us, yeah,
Or
is
have
it
in-
going well? You can tell, I mean, Citizen Q doesn't know if it was good, bad, or otherwise, you know.
It was about $200,000 or more in
And-
work, and so we have, Roxanne Proudly is our finance director, and so we put the numbers over so that we could actually, our county was declared a disaster, and our city and Cameron also were able to make the numbers so that we got the FEMA reimbursement.
On the storm damage from the winter?
Nice.
And the stash your trash day, how
Stash
does,
your trash that just happened was not as successful. Typically, the second one of the year never is. There was not a line. So there was not, what I'm hearing is there was not even a steady stream of cars. So the second one is pretty lightly attended, but I'd still like to have it because it still keeps people from just dumping trash.
the radio is broadcasting, Taylor's having like hazardous material, disposal and that. Anyway, we'll get to that. It triggered thought waves under trash, and I just wanted to see.
Back on that other, were we, you said that we were reimbursed by, what did you say, by FEMA?
Reimbursed. We
Yeah.
will be reimbursed
Or you
by
will
FEMA.
be, that's what I was gonna say, you will be at 100% or
No.
what percent?
No, in fact, I think it's a 75-25 if I'm remembering correctly. And because we were down with power, we weren't even able to collect all of the work that the fire department did because they were having to do their own dispatching, so it wasn't going through a recorded system. So that would have made our matchup, and it didn't, so we're working with them and the chief about how we stop that the next time we have a winter event.
So right now, 75, 25?
But that's still, we're gonna get back right at $200,000.
Earlier this year, we discussed helping or doing something about a house close to this location. And then we never took any action. Is that still ongoing?
It's still in the court system, and it was pending their application to the home program. And so they're in the pending status still with the home program.
Well, that program takes quite a while before they decide anything, so it may be a year before we
We
know
need
it.
his deed.
Yeah.
We need his deed, and he's about $1,700 behind from having his deed. And that's where he sits, and I've called him countless number of times. It's just where he is financially.
The reason I'm concerned is it looks like the roof has bowed and the wall has pooched
Yeah.
out.
There's a window basically holding up
Yeah,
the frame.
Yeah.
So he, basically, he can't get a copy, it's not a deed yet, because he hasn't paid it off or
He's not paid
something.
it off, he's
So-
$1,700 behind paying it off.
So what he has, that's not acceptable? What he does have?
It's, I think
Not
it's a
to the
contract for
application.
deed. So he
It's a
doesn't,
contract.
He has to have a clear deed to the property.
you don't have to
Well,
own it outright,
yeah,
but
but
you
a
have to have a deed, but I think he's a
Contract for deed is not basically in his name,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So, okay, I
That's
get
the
it, I
only,
get
and
it.
that's the only holdup on that application.
At some point, I also would like to have a workshop on what a sister city does about if they're not current on their taxes. Let's see if, you can't grant variances or anything to somebody if they're not current on taxes. And I'm wanting to have a workshop to discuss that.
So, if he is approved, what does that do? I mean, does it pay for demoing and replacing that house?
Correct.
Where it sits?
correct.
Yep.
He'll have to move out somewhere, and then they'll come in and tear it down and rebuild.
And the city, or who's in charge of that?
It's the city is the fiscal agent. The program is run through the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. And we use Langford Management is the person who is the go-between between us and the state. But we put in $7,500 and the state puts in the remainder to make up the $130,000, which is what the houses are running now. And the owners get it free, and all they have to do is live in it for 5 years, and it's a 20% forgiveness per year. It's an amazing deal.
Well, I didn't know what the holdup was. I knew we had started this earlier this year, discussed it.
But it is still in process.
And so, Ben, we've moved out 3 houses, or we're in the process of moving out 3 houses currently, is that right? 2 at the Catholic Church and the one that was over here?
And then I think we've only had one move in on Rice here recently.
Any application permits? At
Yeah.
this-
Yeah, there's been permits pulled for all but one, and I've reached out to the one that hasn't pulled one. But as far as any future ones to move in, I've been in conversation with at least 8 people, but that's typically normal. And then they get the restrictions, and then they usually don't move in the house.
Would that be, Barbara, when you said, with the city council and the alleyway at the church, would that be the alley in between this house that moved out and the church? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Cause the church is here and the alley would be here?
It runs
and
from
the
the
house would
highway
be here?
to Bell, or?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from
So
the highway to Bell.
Did they do the entire alley going all the way from here to here, or just behind the church?
The church owns between Bell to 79. So it's the entire
So
alleyway between Bell
It
and 79.
would be the entire alley, all the way down.
Yeah, they purchased all of that property. And so that's why they're moving the houses out. They've sold the houses separately, so the people that bought them are moving them out, and then they'll have the vacant land.
With no alley.
Correct.
Any further questions?
Yeah, so I know we had all those shopping carts at the end of town for a couple of days and they're gone. But what about the mess all behind that?
Pitiful.
I mean, you can see it on Google Earth clear as day.
Yeah, that, I've reached out to I'm assuming you're talking about the RV park over there.
Yes, sir.
And they're in the process of cleaning it up. I've sent them a code letter to assist them on getting it cleaned up. As working with, I don't know if somebody new bought it or if they're just interested in keeping it clean all of a sudden, but they've called me about a month ago, and so I've sent them a code letter so that way they can show their residents that, you know, you need to do this or we're kicking you out.
He was evicted, and that's what caused that one.
Yeah,
Oh, those carts?
yeah.
Technical question here. Is there any way to get an occupancy report on motels and RV parks?
Yes, the state comptroller's office.
Because everyone I'm talking to is almost at capacity as far as motel rooms and RV parks and all that, and I just,
You have to go through the comptroller's office.
okay. All right, any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Good job, man.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry, one quick. Where are we at on, letters coming back from the illegal machines?
That one is a good question. That one is going to take me and Chief going together on that. I know that we've gotten reports of several places reopening. And so we're going to handle it from the machine side, where if it's just there, it will be a zoning code issue. And then if it's there and they're paying out whatever the amount is, if it's 5 times or so, then Chief's going to handle that portion of it. So really, I just have to go back to these buildings and see if they're there.
I've got a question, we may have to workshop on this. What does the law state, or what does it say about having locked rooms inside of a business?
You
That's gonna be a building code issue. We need to get our building official in on it because they're using that, at least it appears, to selectively let people into an area that they're doing things they shouldn't be doing.
And I have from the fire end of that, I have a problem. I understand if the door opens from the inside out, they can get out in case of fire, but if there was a need to access that room,
Right.
I have a problem.
So we could probably get Kirby involved in that too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Possible workshop on locked rooms within businesses. Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir. Receive the Development Services Department report. Would that be you too?
Which report?
Development Services.
That's right. That's our
Turn your
department.
hat around to the other.
So I gave a PowerPoint to the city council because it was my turn in line to speak to them about what development services has been up to lately. And so we have a PowerPoint. If Shannon's gonna pull it up and then I can run through the numbers. We like to just give you numbers, that way you understand what we're doing and if that's approved by you guys, of if we're going on the right track or if numbers are too low, too high, things of that nature. So we want it to be measurable for you guys instead of just telling you what we've been up to. We like to show you.
Could you get the light? Charlie.
Is that mic on right there? Okay, I can just do the PowerPoint.
Good job, man.
How do you do that?
I know.
What happened?
I was just asking, was it another switch for that light? She says,
No, that's the 24-hour.
"Go. Need one of them in Scott House."
Yeah, he's funny over there.
It's, someone is here for a meeting that was set up, and I didn't know.
They just need to be put in,
In here?
yes.
Okay. Okay.
Doesn't start till 3 o'clock.
No, this is a deposition that's happening.
Oh, excuse me. Whoa.
Judge, deposition.
Go ahead and start giving us a little spiel on there. There's a lot of dead air time for the folks at home.
Well, okay. So as far as we can start going over the code enforcement. That's the last slide. I'll give you the numbers when the slide's pulled up. But I think a positive thing that's come from code enforcement since we've taken the proactive approach is numbers are starting to come down. And that's not necessarily me going out less. It's actually more the citizens are taking it on themselves to start cleaning up a little bit more. And so you'll see that on the last slide, and I'll go over that with you guys. So if you can go to the next slide. So the first thing that you guys have taken on is our many ordinances that we've either amended or created to add teeth, as you like to say. And so there's been 12 new ones created as a whole. And then we've reviewed more than 9 so far, but we've amended 9. And these numbers have changed because we just recently adopted 3 more at the last council meeting that did not include. So your total would be up to 24. Now all these numbers are coming from May of 2021 because that's when I started in this position, and that's our first report we've given to council since then. So that's where all these numbers are coming from. If you go to the next slide for me, please. And then the biggest thing that you guys have adopted that's helped staff the most is the allowed use table. You guys have told us, as well as council, where you want each business to be in its proper zoning classification. So it's taking out the gray area for us, and we can give this to developers, or if somebody calls myself or Barbara and says, hey, I want to open up a restaurant, can I put it at this property? We'll pull up their zoning, we'll pull up this use table and see if that will allow it. There's other codes we'll pull after this, but this is the very first one we'll pull to decide if that's a possibility for them or not.
Have we covered all land uses in our, a drone airport? You never know what the new technology is, but are we pretty inclusive with what we have?
We are, and then we've also adopted a way for people to request to add a new use, which you've had a few. If you can remember, the shooting range was because of this table. The hemp shop that's over where the old nail place used to be by Bandas asked to be on the table. So there's a process in place for somebody. If they want to try to add their use, they come speak to you guys, and then they'll speak to city council. And so it just takes that out of the staff gray area. If it's not allowed, then we tell them it's not allowed, and this is your process to try to ask for it to be allowed. The next one is the plats we've looked at so far. So you guys have done 18 plats in total. Within those plats, 36 lots have been created. And then when we talk about Cornerstone, they have 683 lots with 660 lots being developed for housing. And then this is the permit portion. So we've issued a total of 846 permits as of that council meeting. And the more exciting part about those permits is the new homes that we've issued. In 2021, we've had 9, 2022, we've had 8, and then this year we've had 3 so far. And that number is going to rise significantly as Cornerstone starts going vertical. And then this is the one that staff's most proud of that we were talking about earlier, the TDHCA program. And those are the list of addresses that have a new house. So if you want to go see what it looks like, any of those addresses, they've all been approved and they all have a CO from us.
And that's Deanie Hauser's, Ollie Dean Hauser's.
Can you go back to that slide real quick, or do we have it?
So this is actually our most recent one. This just happened, I think, last month where they got their final approval. So that is a brand new house.
Thank you.
And then another one that staff's worked on is the GIS map. When I got hired on, I think we may have had 12 or 13 layers. And so currently right now we have more than 41 layers, but 41 are active and we can give them out to anybody that we want to. And some of those layers is the interactive zoning map. If you pull up the zoning map, you can search in your address in the search bar and it'll take you to your property and you'll know what it's zoned as. So you wouldn't even have to call me if you didn't want to. We've mapped all the vacant residential lots in case the developer ever calls and says, we want to build a lot of houses. Where do you have the most vacant land at that's zoned appropriately? We can give them that layer of the map and they can see that. We've mapped parks, the park's radiuses, the streets, so on and so forth. Active water lines, sewer lines that are updated when we replace one. We tell it what's going in the ground and how big it is. And then the last one is code enforcement. Since I've gotten code enforcement back from the police department, you guys and the city councils asked for a more proactive approach. And so our numbers when we go into the fiscal years is 2021, we had 140 cases. 2022, we had 434. And then this year, we've had 213. And then the total cases, you can see 94% of them have complied. And then I think 4% of them are still open and 2% are in the court system. So we've had a really good compliance rate. And again, the numbers are starting to drop, which is a good sign, because now staff can focus more on property maintenance issues instead of just high grass and trash all the time. With that, that's my presentation. So if you have any questions on any of the slides, I'll be happy to answer them.
Questions? No questions.
The young man is doing very good work.
He is.
The unfortunate thing is, a lot of them would rather go to court than comply on some of our repeat.
That's good. That's good.
Say? Red or blue?
Ooh, consider and take any necessary action on the recommendations to city council regarding a plat submitted by Shannon Carnegie for property located at 339 East Highway 79, Rockdale, Milam County, Texas, into Lot 2A and 2B. That would be page 4 of your, yeah, page 4. Well, hello. Seems
I'm
like
back.
you were just there. Deja vu.
So in review of this used to be one big lot that has now been divided into two. And so in review of this, we've only noted two things on the plat. There's an overhead power line on track 2B that we would like an easement to be dedicated for. And then on track 2A, there's two buildings to the south that are encroach on that building setback line, which is the dashed line that you see on your paper, that are not requesting a variance. It looked like he started to request a variance, but just didn't finish that language out. So we're just asking, what are they asking for, so that way we can give it to them.
Is G actually a building, or is that just, it says concrete, is that a building on concrete, or is that where it
When
burnt
it
down?
burned down, isn't it?
Burnt down, so there's no building on that one, right? Or is that just the concrete?
That's the one by your storage unit.
It says G on there, it just says concrete, but I didn't know if that meant,
Where is it?
I didn't know if that just meant the concrete, or it was on, a building on concrete.
There's no building there. It's just a cement.
Yeah, just
That's where the
concrete.
driveway, part of the driveway is now, where the gate is to go into the storage unit property.
So it's just this.
So, yeah, so this is the
And,
building.
and you're extending the electrical and
this one
water
right here is the,
So it's
from
just-
behind, I guess that's building B, right?
Yeah, so they actually have it already.
Inside.
So they've actually already started development. This is where the mini storage is at, and now they're
Mhm.
doing boat and RV.
I just went out there.
And so they have everything, and they actually have access to both lots. So they really don't need us to extend any utilities out to them. They already have them.
So but she won't have any problems with the new boat and RV being far enough away as well, even though it's not on here right now, right?
Right,
It should be okay.
It
So
should-
she doesn't have to go through this again, right?
right, because they're doing that on track 2A, and so they pull their building
Right.
permits where they've showed that they meet setbacks and things of
Okay,
that nature.
that's what I'm saying.
They've done all the appropriate paperwork.
And then on building A, the one that's in the setback line, that's an empty building, right? It's not, or it's storage or something?
It's a to be used building. You wanna talk about it?
So, okay, okay.
I mean, I can.
It's right on the corner.
It's what you're gonna do for your plants.
So where building A is, we're gonna move our shop there probably in February, weather permitting, and open a garden center. So the building has been remodeled. We have new electricity, new plumbing, air conditioning. We put the millings around it, and then I guess that's a B. That's a covered carport that's directly behind the building we remodeled. And so there's gonna be millings put around that as well. And there's a divider fence that's not on this survey that goes between A and C. So it goes between A and C, and then it goes up towards, so I guess it goes north. And right at G, it looks like, it goes to the west, all the way to the corner. So here, where the corner is right here, or I guess where this corner is right here, up to, almost to the fence is where the boat and RV storage is, if that makes sense.
So it'll be back behind the fence? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it is behind the fence.
It is behind the fence.
It's nice, I just went out there.
And the
Looks really good.
utility easement is how, it's, you're needing just to note it, or what is?
The surveyor just depicts it on this, and that creates it. So we'll work with them on that. It just protects the power lines that are currently there.
And any complications with the location, it's a building A
No,
with the variance?
The building is existing, so that's when they typically just come through and they tell you how close it is to the lot line. They ask for the variance is automatically granted, because we're not asking for them to tear down the building.
And your recommendation is approval with the above conditions?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And is both A and B all in the city limits?
Yes.
All of them? Okay.
Yeah, the city limit line is,
I remember where
it's in the back. I just saw it a minute ago.
I just-
If you look straight back from those four buildings, that's where the city limits shows back there, both A and B. Anyway, questions? I'll entertain a motion on this.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Need a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion by Charles, second by John,
Jason.
that we approve this with the notations and send it on to city council. All in favor of that, raise your right hand. Motion made, seconded, and will be sent on to city council. Action item E, consider and take any necessary action on a recommendation to the city council regarding an ordinance amending to landscaping and screening requirements. Where'd Ben go?
So Ben and I were looking at the landscaping requirements for some of our new development and plotting out how many trees they were gonna have, and it was gonna put more than one tree every 30 feet. And so generally when we're doing, and we require more than half of the landscaping to go to the front of the site, so you typically don't want the trees that you're gonna have at 30-foot centers. 60-foot center would be more appropriate, because if you think of an oak tree, it's got a 40 to 50-foot spread. You're not gonna wanna put them 30 feet together. So we looked at that and said, yeah, we're asking a little much. So our recommendation is essentially to take it down by just about half. So that we would be, rather than doing 2 trees and 4 shrubs for every 600 square feet, that we would do it for every 1,000 square feet. And that way we'll still have adequate landscaping without over landscaping it.
With that being said, what do we have on timing? And how do you work with them on timing to get it all in? I know what the bookstore has had to do, and timing to get it in, and due to weather and all that.
Typically weather. So you don't want to plant it in the Texas heat, because it's not going to survive generally. So what we normally do is give them a temporary CO and then give them time to come in, like when it starts cooling off and we start getting rain, to put it in. Anybody, the bookstore specifically, as Cornegay, and even the mini storage warehouse over here, they could all take advantage of this.
So you're gonna work a case by case with them on what they're planning and when they're gonna get it in? They each have their own time frame?
Well, it's in the fall. So anybody who gets their certificate of occupancy in heat of the season,
Right.
we're gonna wait and ask them to wait to put that in, cause you can't keep the tree, you can't put enough water on it typically to keep them alive. So you just,
I've got a simpleton question. If you had lot lines that are only lots that were 50 feet apart and you wanted one tree in each one of them, that would be at 50 foot center to center. This is just a numbers question, not a location, but if you had lots that were 50 feet apart, what do you do on 60 foot?
so the way that it works is on a square footage basis rather than a linear basis.
Okay.
So if you figure that your front setback is 25 feet, and then your lot is 50 feet wide, so you're gonna do 50 by 25, and then within that, every 600 square feet currently, you have to have 2 trees and I think either 3 or 4 shrubs. Well, that ends up making, you're really, really overpopulating it, so it's not on the width, it's on the square footage.
Okay, that's,
So, but since we require that over half of it go up front, you're really stacking your landscape.
okay. And this came from y'all, so it is your recommendation.
That is correct.
I'll entertain a motion on the, changing of the, tree requirement.
I'll make a motion that we change it from the 600 square foot to the 1,000 square foot required as read.
I'll second.
Motion made, motion seconded that we pass it on with 1,000 foot. All those in favor, right hand. Motion made, seconded, and carries to pass on to city council. F, consider and take any necessary action on a recommendation to the city council establishing a site visibility triangle. That'll be the next page in your packet.
And this is specifically because of what happened at Murray and San Jacinto, is it is typical in most codes that you have what's called a site visibility triangle. It's usually anywhere from 15 to 30 feet, you create a triangle so that when people come up to an intersection, they can see. And because if you're trying to look and you've got shrubs that are where the driver's head is, you are not seeing any oncoming traffic. And you see that when tree branches grow down, or you get like a really, really broad trunk inside that area. So what we're recommending is that we actually define what it is, put it in the code. I really like the picture that Ben came up with this, and just say that for any site visibility triangle, which is the intersection of any two public streets, that you cannot maintain landscaping above 30 inches. And so that's, unless you're in a really low sports car, that's gonna mean that the driver's head is elevated above what the landscaping is, and then you can see oncoming traffic.
What about there on Halo and Pecos where the slope is slanting down and they have weeds this high and it's hard to see? What about that?
That would be the same thing. So if anything that's obstructing it, it can be grass, it can be shrubs, I mean, it doesn't have to be a planted, it can be anything that is obstructing visibility. You would also not want to put a monument sign, which are the signs that are actually attached to the ground at that location unless it's really low, because it just blocks visibility. You pull fences out of site visibility triangles.
That's what I was that was gonna be my question. Didn't we address fences in the site visibility triangle earlier this year?
Not that I'm aware of, I just know we did the height.
talked about it, but we didn't add that portion to the code, because the way the code's written, it pretty much prevents that from happening for any new fence installs.
I know there's some that are existing that,
Well, I know like the one on Miller and Murray, it's a son of a gun trying to
Yep.
get out of there. I mean, you have to pull out into traffic basically to be able to see around the fence.
that,
Yeah, a lot of that predates that ordinance, because if somebody came now, we would look at street intersections, and you have to be 3 feet or shorter, or you have to back off, I think it's 20 or 25 feet is how the code's written, before you can construct the fence.
so where are the teeth?
It's simply, it is, so it's an enforcement issue.
By creating this, it becomes enforceable
Yes.
No other action on our part.
Correct,
The others are grandfathered.
And this is in any intersection.
yes.
Like on Main and, Scarborough, when you coming out on the highway. I mean, coming out on them streets, I know it's a couple.
Does this apply to places like, I know, I've pulled out a Sonic before and they have that big brush
Yeah.
right there. You know, does that triangle, this is just for any intersection?
It actually can, for driveways that intersect public streets as well. And because nobody is intentionally thinking that
Right.
they want to make the driver, so if we reach out to Sonic and go, look, you've got a site visibility issue here, would you mind taking it down or lowering it or something? They typically will work with us.
Did we work with Murphy on theirs, or did they just do that on their own? They had some landscaping that you had to crawl out to the middle of the intersection to see around, and they've cleaned it up, and I didn't know if that came from us.
I think that came from them.
Gas station at Walmart.
So, any other let me do it like this, any other questions regarding this? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the visibility triangle as read.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion to accept it as read, to present to city council. All those in favor, your right hand. Motion made, seconded, and passes on to city council as presented. Action item G, consider and take any necessary action on a recommendation to the city council regarding an ordinance amendment to the replacement tree definition for chapter 10.
So as Ben was saying, we had a list of trees that we used to use, and then the council has just adopted using just what's in Texas A&M's website. We missed the fact that there was another section that listed trees in chapter 10. So we're just looking to do the exact same thing, strike the listing and just use the webpage to make sure that it stays up to date.
Questions? This just cleans up what we did through city council, right?
Makes it consistent.
Yes. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion, presented from the staff on ordinance amendment to the planning commission, which referred developers to the Texas A&M website for native species.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded that we pass this on to city council as presented. Those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion made, seconded, and carries that we present it, the amendment as presented to us. Sorry to rush y'all along, but I know that we have another meeting coming up at 3 o'clock, and so I know some of y'all have to prepare.
Can we discuss some stuff off of this, what we've done today, some quick stuff? Have we got any plans on the Redbud Street repairs?
No,
There is a lot of,
I just rode down that
oh,
road.
it's pitiful.
It's bad.
well,
Got how it looked, I was
The
going,
trees
Go
have
down
caused
no
it.
more.
yeah.
Tree roots have caused it from the center.
it's actually to the trees in the center don't have a root system that goes out. Pine trees go down.
Right.
But the ones on the side have, but it's a concrete street, so we do have cost to do it, and it is extremely expensive. So it's not one that we can just go in there, and we bought that zipper that goes in and chews
Yeah.
up asphalt,
Asphalt.
and then you put down
But it
Portland cement.
it won't do anything to the concrete.
You won't do anything to concrete, so you gotta actually get in there and it's gotta be jackhammered out. Now, it's an automatic jackhammer these days, but we don't have one. And so it's extremely expensive. We are aware of it, we are hearing the complaints. And
Is
we
this a
hope-
budget item?
It needs to be a budgeted item.
Can it come from us to look at?
Oh, absolutely. But just know, the staff is already looking at it. We're already trying to get it done because that street is really tough.
Or as a temporary fix, why can't we go in and just literally lay some coal mix, meaning asphalt, on top of that, just to smooth it up at some point. I mean,
Fill in
it's
the-
knocking front ends out of people's cars. It's tearing up tires. And those are tax-paying citizens just like everybody else.
Yeah, let me see if there's, if
I mean,
there
there's
is
got to be
short
something we can temporary do.
Shoot, just road base, better than
Yeah, a little dust is better than that, but
You want us to workshop that, or you wanna just,
How about if I give you let me get
staff
back with
meeting.
Gerald and see where we are with that, but
yeah,
I appreciate that you bringing that up.
yeah.
do we still need to workshop downtown parking? Yes. What about our tire situation?
Ben?
Let me see.
I mean, is this okay?
Yeah, it's,
As far as tires, those that have complied. Those that have not, our attorney's drafting language to put them in court, is where that stands. So it's not that staff hasn't done anything about it. I'm really waiting on that language to get everybody that has not complied into the court system. Since we just adopted this ordinance, I don't have a complaint to draw from to fill in the blank essentially to put them in court. And so we want to make sure that it's a document that really can't be
Can you
contested.
give us a number of how many we sent out and how many are complying? Roughly?
Off the top of my head, that qualified for the business portion of the ordinance, I think we have about 3 that have complied, and we have 3 or 4 that haven't. Something along those numbers.
I was gonna get you to share with them the vacant business that we talked about, and I don't know if it's proper or not, so,
Well, we can talk about that.
there's 2 of them that we discussed.
There's a few businesses, but that we adopted that ordinance at a rather weird time. I mean, we adopted it really right after those notices get sent out because vacant commercial registration happens at the fiscal year, which is October 1st, is when I take that on, and then they register for a year. So the new ordinance took effect when it got adopted, but now the new standards are going to be applied because the letters are finally going out since that ordinance adoption.
Are we still talking tires?
No, we're talking vacant commercial registrations. And so they'll be held to different standards now. I know one of them is they have to have an interior light on the building that makes it look like it's being used, and that utilities don't get you out of not registering your building, things of that nature.
One of them is very prominent on the highway. It's a car wash that hasn't been in operation for over a year. And another one was a nursing home that and what is the status of the other nursing home by the high school?
That purchase fell through, but the rezone still stands to where it's climate controlled storage only. Because you did a commercial intent plan development for that. And so if somebody wants to buy it, that's how they have to use that property
That's how
unless
it's
they ask.
marketed right now, as a climate controlled.
I don't know if they're marketing it that way, but that's the only thing that can go in there.
Can they, buyer, seller, one of them come back in and have it rezoned?
They can try to. There's been multiple attempts to rezone this property, and this is the first one that's gone through in a long time.
Yes.
So they can always attempt to do that. It's just most likely not
The
gonna go
thing
through.
would be would be tear it down and make it single family,
Well, it would have to be rezoned again, but it
Well, I
would
know, but-
possibly go through,
but everything else around is single family.
right?
Yeah,
Do we need to look at that from planning?
I don't think so,
It's not
because
our-
it's really gonna be a private market decision, and then we'll respond to it.
So if a property, I guess this is the next question, if a property is currently up for sale, I'm not talking specifically that property, but if it's up for sale, do they still have to abide by the same rules that's coming into this October 1st, meaning,
Yeah. Because that's a portion of the ordinances that if you have your property for sale, it's considered vacant. You may still be using it, but it's still considered vacant.
Barbara, I guess this one goes to you. Where are we at on getting speed limits changed to 40 miles an hour max from city limit to city limit?
Check with TxDOT. They were supposed to be doing a speed study
Well,
that was turned in.
they're
they-
dragging their feet.
No, they're doing a speed study. I went to Taylor the other day in Thorndale and Rockdale. Rockdale had one or two, those.
Yep. Well, our police officer was doing a study the other day and he's talked about 5.
Oof.
So, and that was awesome. Do we have a new officer?
We do, we
And-
have a new school resource officer.
But I mean, as far as a patrol officer,
No,
no?
the whole
I didn't
thing.
recognize this one, but they have definitely been working the west
Yeah,
side
I know which one it is. He's
Is
been
it the
riding
school
a lot.
resource officer?
and he needed it.
Yeah,
What about, I know y'all are on school board, we have a big issue right there at the blinking light at Calhoun. That RV mobile home park has about, I counted yesterday and I may be wrong, I counted 15 kids got off that bus, off the highway, going into that mobile home park. And I counted 7 vehicles
It didn't stop.
that didn't stop.
It's all over the place.
I know, it's pitiful. I mean, is it set up to where that bus could turn in? I mean, somebody's fixing to get hurt.
So there's, traffic has stopped all the way back to Walmart.
Yes.
And part of it is they don't have the kids ready when the bus stops.
Right, well, they gotta be sitting
Some
down.
of them run back.
they
Okay.
can't get up till they stop.
Right,
They can't get up till it stops.
well, and we're at 45 miles an hour in front of my shop, and then we literally jump to 50 miles an hour. When they come around the corner at the piano bar, it's a drag race.
Yes.
And, I mean, it's serious.
So,
I mean,
I know that you were saying there was a business wanting to come in, but they couldn't because of the,
well, they're coming in. You can go out there and see the land's already staked off, but they're waiting on this from the tech dot, knowing
Get
where
an
they can
extra
position
driveway.
everything.
but is it because of the width of the property?
It's because of the speed limit.
I know, but I guess you said they needed a circle drive or double drive. Is it because the width?
No, they're putting 2 businesses in.
Oh, okay.
Well, one is an apartment and, or,
Well, it's
Two different businesses.
two retail businesses are going in. The property's already surveyed off half. If you'll look at the property where you turn in, there's a survey stick there and all the way back over to the corner of Walmart. Well, Walmart will not give them access on the side street of their own property, which, whatever, that's their choice. But TxDOT will not allow them any more openings
To the
until the speed limit drops to 40 miles an hour. And that's not just for their property, that's in any piece of property in Rockdale. So it's beneficial for the whole city, including the property that we own across from the general store, to push this as hard as we can to get this speed limit lowered. 1, it's too dangerous, and 2, that's more openings and businesses for the town.
Well,
I'll
especially,
get a response on that, and let
Yes,
you know.
yeah.
Do what, Barbara?
I'll get a response from TxDOT.
Yep, I mean, I've literally called the realtor today, and he has yet to hear anything.
Okay.
I know that one of the officers is always out there stopping traffic for directing traffic at the school, you know, as long as he's not on call. Without him being there,
Yeah,
man, it's dangerous.
Oh,
it
yeah.
is. It is. It's deadly. I'm
We're gonna have a major wreck.
yeah. It's just coming. Really and truly, we need a stop sign, a stoplight somewhere before we get out of town. I don't know if it's at Calhoun. Well, and the next one would be Calhoun.
Yeah.
Cause traffic has gotten so diverted since the high school built, and, you know, we used to come through there and you go through there to go to junior high. Now, all that traffic diverts through our feeder streets, and you've got so many people turning right and left west of Meadows. And it's just, we gotta get a hold of it, cause somebody's, I see people turning into my shop and almost get rear-ended because that vehicle behind them thinks they ought to be going 80. And it's just,
Ben's starting to look like a Baptist singing the 4th verse. He's starting to waver on me a little bit. Y'all have any more questions for Ben at this time?
I seen the bean bags in front of the shop. Are they coming out to redo that, or what are they gonna do in front of the barber shop? Cause it flooded in the shop this round when it rained. I got videos. It was worse. It's worse than it was before.
It came into your shop?
It went all the way to the back of my shop. That's how much water came through. We
Okay.
had towels and vacuums. I see they had the bean bags, sandbags up there in front of the shop on the curb, but it flooded, like, probably like this much water coming at a time.
Yeah, I went and took pictures of a little bit farther east of you where they were having the same issue, so they may be tackling both your problems at the same time, but we have to reach out to James, because I haven't heard back. We reached out to James Kramer. I went out there when it was raining and took pictures just so he could see what was going on as it rained. And so I haven't heard back from him since those pictures. I don't know if you have.
Did you get
So I don't
in
know
there
what
at
they're.
Dairy Queen or at Judith's office?
No, we only got a call from whoever owns 212 East Cameron, I
The
believe.
former Ford House.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they actually called us. That's the reason we went out there. So if you see it, call me and I'll go take pictures of it.
Well, Neil Farrell got pictures of the street between Judith Matula's and the old O'Reilly's building. Water almost got in Judith's rent house in the back. Because it came so hard and
And it
fast.
has before.
Right.
That's why it was redone.
And I was fortunate enough to have a Union Pacific person come in and do some work. And we, as far as making those culverts bigger, where it's backing up, like at my old lot, next to the oil change place, when it rains like it does, we've got to be able to have the culverts, more culverts through that railroad. And it literally takes getting with Union Pacific and so, and look, here's what's going on. Because we are having so much drainage from the north through there. And it can definitely get fixed.
The only other thing that I would say related to that is we're, the $4.3 million drainage project, they're opening bids next week.
Okay.
And
Does that
so-
have anything to do with the railroad?
No, but it
And
does take the drainage from up north and then
Right.
starts to channelize it.
But until we can have a hole this big, that far, but when you try to push it through that,
Yeah.
it ain't gonna work.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's gonna eventually take the railroad, putting another one or two culverts through there.
Which
to give us more.
they have,
Yeah, on,
recently, but, because I know we provided the culvert, so to speak, cut it for them and did all this stuff for them. I don't remember exactly where it was at.
By Bridge Park,
that's
where
right.
they did the big ones,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. So every one of them, all the way up needs it, cause Brady Nelson, you can call Brady, he's all, John, they're not flooding us. He said it's just backed up coming out.
Shanna, do you need anybody here to schedule an interview? Anybody on the committee here needing to schedule an interview? I'll block the door for you if you do, but
We could use one more to have someone who wasn't able to do it, so we do have a spot open if you want. someone to
Interview
speak.
for what?
Did we get mine at 3 o'clock?
Well, we've got to set up for another
Okay.
meeting by 3 o'clock.
yeah, we're cutting it right, it's soon.
Mine's Friday.
Charles, Friday at 3.
Yeah.
What are you interviewing for? You getting another job?
I didn't
He's gonna be on television.
I got a hair appointment at 3 on Friday.
That's exactly why I said.
Do you need another volunteers or no?
Well, can we adjourn first and then we'll do that?
Certainly. If there's no further questions for anybody here,
Question? Hey, what about the parking on the grass? Did they pass that through the council or? Yeah.
And we're giving them a 12-month education period before we start citing that.
So no
They're
parking
gonna
on grass, residential.
12-month education.
unless it meets the improved parking.
Right. Asphalt, concrete, grass pavers. If we adopt anything else before then.
For like 4 days. Maybe a week.
Now-
But I can still park on my grass at the detail shop because it's resident, it's
Yes.
commercial.
It's commercial. This is only for residential properties.
Joking. Hey.
All right. We hereby close this meeting. Thank you.